Cool. Hi, you ready?
Why not, man?
All right, Mike, you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Ty, you ready?
Yep.
All right, let's have some fun. Timeout. Tyler, who are we taking a timeout with today?
Kevin, good to see you, brother. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, up in the 585, all the way down to the DFW and to where I am in Walmart Razorbackville, we have Mike Ognenovski, the president of Sydor Optics. Mike, thanks for jumping on with Kevin and I. Episode 90, we'll just say 97 of Time Out with Leaders.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, excited to get to know you, Mike. And Kevin and I always like to start out asking what are you listening to right now? What was in the I would say CD player, but you know your what tune was on the way to work this morning?
So every morning I get in the car and I got a long drive in, and I got a very diverse, depending on how I feel. Right? I mean, so this morning it was is old schools. It was the Scorpions. Rocking like a hurricane. It just felt in one of those moods, and I just cranked it up, and felt good coming to work.
There you go. Some Scorpions.
Did anybody drive by and double take? Just seeing you belting it out at the top of your mouth.
No, there's no incidences. No, yeah, I always got to dodge the deer. That's happened too many times, but yeah.
Where are you driving in from, Mike? What part of Rochester?
Up in Honeyway Falls.
Very
Honeyway
nice.
Falls.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. All right. So on this long drive, Mike, you have the opportunity to have a billboard right there on 390 as you're coming into the city. You know, thousands of people will pass that billboard every day. What quote do you want people to drive by to get them thinking in the morning or even after work? What quote stands out to you?
Good question. I would say make today count. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. I know it's said a lot of different times. You've heard it. But as you get older in life and you appreciate life more, and I've seen that, and you make today count. Just get the best out of today. A lot of people will hold grudges. I see it at work. I see it, all over the place. Why hold grudges? Make today count. Make the best of it. Just get beyond that and try to make yourself better. And work with people, right? Overall, because I think, and I always think about that, and I do that more and more. I catch myself. If I tend to do something and feel negative or not feel as good at things, I pick myself up and say, "Hey, dude, make today count. Do it." And I tell people all over. I tell my family, tell my friends. It's not worth it. Just move on.
Yeah, move on.
Make today count.
Exactly. And I wear this blue wristband, and it's a saying. It's like, don't sweat the small things. But my buddy Wood Craig
Same thing.
Right?
Exactly.
He never sweated the small things. He never let those small things become bigger things. He would address them on the front end or not care, right, and move on.
Right.
All right. So you're taking Tyler and I out to your favorite restaurant in either Honeyway Falls, Rochester, or we won't limit you from a geographical perspective. But where are you taking Tyler and I? And what three people are you going to bring along with us?
Oh, okay. Well, as long as you guys like steak.
I like steak. Yes.
Okay. I would say I don't think Black and Blue's open for done, but maybe like Tornadoes or Char.
Okay.
Even Tony D's. All three are actually pretty good. Not all steakhouses, but yeah.
I love it. All right. What three people are you bringing with us?
So what three people? Dead or alive or both?
Dead or alive. I like making it even more interesting.
Okay. So given we're talking about leadership, I'll say Leonardo da Vinci, which I think the guy's a genius. I mean, everything he's done, very diverse in how he is. I think that'll be pretty interesting. The other one, a little controversial, I would say Elon Musk, although some people don't like him. He's a smart guy, coming out and did what he did, young, very young, selling the business, starting out, going against the United Launch Alliance and the big primes and inventing, essentially putting together a SpaceX to give lower cost launches because they worked in the space business. So I really can appreciate that. And then going on to Tesla and everything else. It's just he's a pretty amazing dude overall. And I would say the last one, I would say like Martin Luther King, leadership. A lot of things that he's done and been able to, get everyone thinking the same way and working together and helping each other and appreciating each other. I think that's very admirable. I think that would be a pretty wild conversation, but I think
it would be a while. Hopefully we're eating that tomahawk
pretty
steak
diverse
that's like
sets.
80 ounces, because that sounds like a long meal full of a lot of conversation and discussion.
Yeah.
Did you envision yourself becoming a president of an organization, or was that
No.
not even a future vision that you had for yourself?
Yeah. So as a kid, I always thought about I wanted to have my own business, be my own person. So I didn't really think about working in a corporation. My whole family worked in a corporation. They're all mostly General Motors folks. And at the time, I always wanted to do my own. And I always did I always had some side stints, always. And I always wanted to do that. But then once I started at Kodak, I kept getting promoted. I went from one job to another and to another element. But I looked at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint. I said, okay, if I can do that internally without going on business on my own. And that's what I always thought about it. That's why I always stayed with corporations that long. Then moving up into the executive ranks, that obviously was help keep me within the corporation. Plus, you learn a ton.
Mm-hmm. Now I gotta ask, looking at your education, because a lot of leaders are looking at going to business school. My one buddy, a boss, just started at the Simon's MBA program. Yep. What did you learn at Wharton that you didn't know previously that helped you in leadership?
So at Wharton, it's funny because one of the things that kind of made me nervous, you know what a skiff is, right? When you're actually rowing.
Yeah.
One of the exercises they did was teamwork. To answer your quick question, they taught me teamwork. It's all about team. Is pretty diverse group of people. Everyone executives that when we were there, kind of working with each other. But they put you on a skiff on different teams, and they have to compete against each other on that overall. And as you're on that skiff, I think it was 8-person skiff. And what you have to learn is that everyone has to work in sync with each other and kind of get into the rhythm, get into that working cadence and as you're rowing and everything else. And it was really cool to see. So we did a couple trials, and in the end, we had three other teams that we competed against. And you saw everyone, male, female, different levels, people from HR, people from operations, from engineering and business development, everyone working together cohesively. And that was very telling. And I play those videos here at work. And there's one actually that they actually use a skiff. And that is so important. That stuck out as my mind is teamwork. Everyone working together in order for the organization to get ahead. Every function working. And that really taught me a lot. And they focused a lot. They focused on all the different business aspects, the financials, and everything else. But that really stuck out with me.
Love that.
Dude, awesome. Yeah, Mike. And I was going to ask you what. So I see you've been a VP over and over again, and now a president, right? You've been performing at let's just say a high level.
That was by choice. I had a lot of opportunities to become president.
Okay.
In a lot of the different divisions, but my only thing is I was tied to Rochester. My parents were both alive at the time, and I didn't want to move. And I was told in order for you to do, you'd have to go to Roanoke, Virginia. You'd have to go to Clifton, New Jersey, and I just I didn't do it at the time. And do I resent it? Do I regret it? Maybe not, but I spent time with my family, which was good. I appreciate it.
Oh, that's awesome. I get it. And I mean, I think you should pat yourself on the back for being a VP, man. I'm not saying that's a knock at all. My question was, how are you so consistent for such a long period of time? Like I said, you were performing at a high level since '99, as far as I can see on your LinkedIn. I don't necessarily have your resume on hand, but what do you chalk that up to?
So that's a great question. What I did was every time in my particular instances, we were acquired. Back when I was with Kodak, we were acquired by ITT Corporation, which is a large conglomerate. And as I moved into ITT acquired Ito Corporation, and then we spun out. So every time we did an acquisition or whatever, I got more people. So it became another VP position, which is mostly in operations. And that just became cumulative. So it was VP and director, VP and VP of director of operations and supply chain. So every time we did an acquisition or we did integration, I stayed with that level within VP. There's more places you can go. It's just up from there. It's the president's position and the CEO's. But yeah, so that's why I think in my specific example is because I stayed within the VP ranks because of that. It was constant acquisitions. But you know, it was almost like every 3 years we would do something, and I would learn more because it was different businesses and different products that we actually sold.
You brought it up, kind of breaking down those silos is one of your biggest takeaways from the Wharton School. And that's something that I see in my professional career is the unintentional or intentional creation of silos within an organization. And seemingly we're all working towards a common goal, overcoming obstacles and challenges together, but we're not really working together.
Right.
How do you incite that cross function? Teamwork and collaboration? How do you encourage that amongst your IT team, your technology team, your operations, your sales, your marketing? How do you build that cohesive environment that allows you to tap into that collective intelligence?
So what I do is I always go back to why are we here? We're here for the customer. If we focus on the customer, then every function, quality, manufacturing, engineering, business development, we pull it together. So you need to put your differences aside, work through those, and collectively all get on board in order for us to succeed and take care of our customer so we can be all successful. You need to put everyone's collective interest into one focus. And I think the focus area is nobody can say, no, we're not going to take care of the customer. If you take care of the customer, then everybody else should fall in line and essentially do that. There's always going to be differences. There's always differences between manufacturing and engineering because engineering designs it. They give it to manufacturing. Manufacturing has to make it. There's always issues in between, but we just constantly talk through those and work through those to understand what are the differences and resolve those.
Yeah, I love that. And I think
it's not as easy
hard.
as that, but
well, it's hard because I think now we're seeing this transition, right? And me as a job seeker, if it's a buyer's market, I love the focus and intentionality that employers have on their customer, but you probably go the additional level so the individual understands how they actually help create a better experience. Because
absolutely.
they're having a positive experience themselves. And
Right.
I commonly say employee experience equals customer experience equals user experience, right?
Right.
What did you have to learn? So understanding that and how fragile teams are and the importance of culture and collaboration, what did you learn through your M&A activity on how to identify those things that might not show up on a balance sheet?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's so important because as we did acquisitions, you know, for one acquisition, I won't say which one it was, but the first thing, you know, the team wanted to do is put our logo because we're the acquirer on everyone's IT screen. So day one. So we had some consultants come in. They said, man, worst thing you can do, don't trash their culture. Don't trash the other company's culture. Respect it, keep their name, transition out of that. And then essentially it'll all be one. And that was a huge learning experience for me because I was one of the people responsible for doing the integration. Is respect the people and understand what they did. They were acquired for a reason. There was a value there, and just because it was an acquisition, not all companies do that. And even if you look at the large companies like Lockheed Martin, Martin Marietta, when they spun, people always kept their culture and of their original company, even though there was acquisition. There's a lot of companies still today, you know, some of our customers that I won't name them, but you can tell that they keep their old name because they say, okay, you acquired us, but it's really important to respect where they came from and why they're on board, and then welcome them as part of the team. And then that's when you actually get the whole team working together because you're leveraging some of their capabilities, bringing them together for the greater goodness of the customer, because now you have a whole new set of customers, which everybody should be happy for that.
Yeah, and it's not you just focusing on what they were doing wrong, whether that was policy, procedure, or behaviors. It's what did you do right? What did you do great? And what can we learn together to
Right.
really make it better for all involved? I love that, Mike.
I was going to chime in and say, I love how you were always focused on the customer, which is almost like focusing on the goal to me. And then like, your KPIs or whatever these people call it now just fall into place without just harnessing it on the process. And I always tell Kevin that the process is the destination, brother. Just to keep light of things and to stay engaged in today, Mike, like you were saying earlier, man. Are you working on yourself right now at all, Mike, on anything specific? What would you say your biggest weaknesses that you're working on right now?
Weight loss. No.
Me too.
I am working on myself. No, you know what? Keeping myself healthy. I want to lose some weight, get more exercise, get out more. And you think differently, as you get more mature, because there's different things, and obviously, one of the things, from a mindset standpoint, was Sylvester Stallone. I saw him on social media. They had an interview with him, and they said, "What is the most important thing? You got all this money, you've got a family, you got a show, you're very successful," and he said, "Time." And again, to my earlier comment about make today count, live for today. He said it. He says one thing that you don't have when you get older is time, and you got to appreciate time. So his whole thing is obviously keep himself, healthy, and I think I'm focusing more on me. Before it was, and I'm inside, within airports, you're in meetings, you get up early in the morning, you're constant travel, delays, and it wasn't about me. It was really more about the corporation, and now I am starting to look at more me, because hey, if I don't take care
how much, I got a couple questions, because I love that focus more on me. Tyler and I say, what makes up the best leaders that we've interviewed on this show? And it's the ones that understand and know who they are first. So twofold question. One, how did your working on yourself change during the pandemic? Was that self-reflection that you were forced to start to see, well, what am I trading my time in for in exchange for what? Which has led to the Great Resignation, the quiet quitting, all these terms that people wanted to put on it. What evolution did you have? Because it also makes it sound like you had an evolution of your own, because you weren't spending time for yourself.
So the first time I got COVID, and that was fine, vaccinated, and I got it really bad. And I didn't have to, my lungs didn't fill up or anything like that, but it took me out like for 2 weeks. And it was bad, with a fever. I think mostly the fever, and you have you go through a lot of self-discovery when you're that, and you say, man, life is so fragile. Something like a virus can take you down and can take you out over, and part of it is, building up my immune system. That's what I said, taking care of yourself, building up your immune system, and working towards that. Everything that means, taking your vitamins, exercise, how you eat, and everything else. I think that's really important. I'm driven, and it's very easy to drop off a bunch of stuff that I should be doing, but I don't do, because I don't get to the end goal. Yeah. And sometimes I'm overly driven. So I had to back off on that, because I love that.
And how did your definition of health expand? Because you talked about physical, but I think about career, social, mental and emotional, financial. Like, did your definition of your health or holistic health start to change?
Yeah, it did. So I think happiness is really important. Are you happy with what you have? Regardless of what you have to be happy, because you could have a lot and not be happy. So I think focusing on and appreciating life, and appreciating what you've gotten, what you've built throughout the years. You've worked hard to get to it. Okay, so now is like, okay, the next step is expanding that and saying, okay, let's make the most out of the rest of your life, and how you treat others, how you work with others, and how well you take care of yourself. I think overall is a big part of that.
And I love that Drucker said it too. You can't buy, rent, grow, or buy more time, right? Which I loved, right? Because time is, it takes these events. You mentioned your illness. Takes my grandfather, right? He's towards the end of his time, and now that he doesn't have as much abilities, he becomes more frustrated, but now he's starting to reflect. So it sounds like you've been reflecting on your accomplishments, your challenges, your frustrations. How much better of a leader, the more you learn about yourself, how much better of a leader do you feel like you are today before that self-reflection?
I think way better, because there's things that, what I know now, and it's working through the years, my past almost 40 years of experience working in different corporations, working within different cultures. I've always internalized that and used that to make myself a better leader in terms of communications and how I work with others, how I work with different teams, customers, and everything else. So you always try to improve on top of that, and it's always like a self-realization of, boy, I could do that better. I could have said that better. I could have accomplished that better. I could accomplish in a much shorter amount of time. So constantly taking a look at that and bettering yourself.
And I think it's that intention, that commitment to improve, because there's a lot of people that get feedback and always are looking to the future, rarely reflecting on where they can grow and what lessons they actually learn from said failures or success.
Right.
I love that.
And I mean, how amazing is it to eat healthy, right? After you've kind of been on a bender for a while, to actually.
It is. So the other thing that I'm doing, it's working pretty good, actually. It does make me feel good. Intermittent fasting, which I've kind of done that because I'm not a.
I skip lunch and breakfast myself. Yes.
So I do too. And, and I was never a breakfast guy and not a lunch guy. I'm even here. I don't eat lunch. Very once in a while, if we have lunch meetings or whatever, we'll do it. But other than that, I think that's helped me, maintain. I've never been a heavyset guy, but it's helped me maintain. But how you feel after you do like a 17-hour, 20-hour fast, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
And I read more and more about it. Doing it from a healthy perspective, obviously you got to constantly do that, but really it clears your mind. You have a ton more energy, and it does help you maintain your weight overall.
Yeah, it just makes you feel like unstoppable almost. I think the only thing that slows me down is carbs.
I tell you, I had this rush the other day, and I'm like, why do I have all this energy? I'm doing all this stuff. My wife's going, oh my God, what are you doing? And I said, I'm still fasting. She goes, well, you better be careful. I'm like, well, and I had to stop and say, okay, I'm done fasting and do it. But it's amazing the amount of energy you get.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And I want to pause, because I think your journey, this self-reflection journey, is something that our audience can really learn from. Because you said it, I'm a high performer, right? And I would say Tyler and myself are workaholics of sorts, because we're high performers, right? And we're chasing that recognition or that reward, whatever it might be that's motivating us. How have you found time to make that break, right? That work and life balance. And Tyler and I say it's more of a blend, right? Some days work overshadows the life, and some days life overshadows the work. But how have you reconditioned your way of thinking, right? Because I think back to my grandfather. You said it, right? To take that promotional opportunity, he was the one that told me never talk about your personal life at professional life, because it would prevent you from having future opportunities. You're less flexible, you're less agile, you're less valued at that organization when you have children and you get married. Yep. How did you have to recondition the way that you may have been nurtured throughout your 40 years in corporations to start to make that break? And how did you do it?
Yeah, so that's a hard one. Number one, it's a great question. So I started with a BlackBerry, and this right here, I put away now. Okay. I put it away. I'll put it, if I'm driving, I put it in my trunk, or I'll put it in my briefcase, because I was hooked to that BlackBerry. I got a ping. I felt like I had to reply right away.
Yes.
And I had to break myself of that habit. And I think that got me to where I am, to be able to, reply and get to people, because I was just so focused on customer, because everyone's my customer overall, and taking care of them. So I felt a quick response was important, but maybe to the detriment of myself, in terms of being on 24/7 sometimes.
Yeah,
that'll get you ahead. So I said, as you get on with your career, you really have to do that. And I saw less and less people doing it. So I'm like, okay, that's something that I really want to do, because health-wise, you don't want to be wired all the time.
Yeah.
And you read a lot of journals that essentially say from a health perspective, you don't want to be on that iPhone all the time. So
Well, I love how you said it, is like putting away the distractions to give your time space and energy to reflect. I think we're constantly distracted. And that was my greatest reflection during the pandemic myself. I mean, knock on wood, my family was not impacted in any negative way. I didn't have any loss of life within my family, which I know is a blessing and a privilege, right? But that was my first opportunity to step off that high performing hamster wheel, right? To always look at tomorrow,
yeah,
actually finally reflect, because there wasn't any sporting events. There was no gossip, right? The news was
right,
relatively limited.
right,
It really forced me to, because I couldn't find a reason to pick up a priority or another distraction to
right,
keep me from actually self-reflecting and evaluating my own life and where I wanted to
right.
go. Being on 24/7. I know how many people are thinking that way, because it can be exhausting. And have you found it more helpful as you become more of yourself, Mike, and act probably more as yourself, your personal self professionally? Have you found that being on becomes more easier when you're not pretending or acting?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. By all means, it you kind of naturally progress from that and say, I don't have to be on, on that all the time. I don't have to respond all the time. And now things are changed. I think back when the technology, and I love technology, and I think it's helped the world progress greatly. But it can also be detrimental, a little too much technology, too much information, and everything else. And I realized that I don't need all that information. I don't need it that quickly.
Yeah.
So I've backed off from that, and that's helped me.
Yeah. Well, I read an article the other day where they tuned into millennials, and 79.8% of our communication as millennials and Gen Z is digital.
Yep.
And we're wondering why we're terrible at critical conversations and we can't
Right.
have disagreements, right? Is because we're leaving out a large portion of the communication that humans pick up on: body language, tonality, and all these other things. So communication continues to be one of those hindrances of performance and success for a lot of organizations.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love talking about being on, because it's fun to
Yeah.
turn it off, but I always struggle with it. Just because sometimes I feel like when you're on so much, you get to that point of a deserved break. Like with your customers, right? Like I
Okay.
just love going ham for whatever time it takes to get the solution done. Because then for some reason watching TV is kind of fun then.
Yeah, right.
It's like if I kind of don't do that,
Yep.
like sports, TV, I don't know, a nice little iced tea just doesn't taste as good. So there's like a double-edged sword for me, I think, to really find that balance and honestly to not overthink it. I believe, because when I start thinking about my on or my off, it's almost worse than what it was before, or my intentions. But like I just was wanting to ask you, you seem like you've done a ton of research. Have you been reading any good books lately?
Mostly self-help books. I've always read different leadership books, and man, I've got a whole library at home, and they've helped me tremendously. And I'll send them out to my team, or different quotes and that kind of stuff, because I think that is important. I think people don't read enough. And now there's actually videos for people that don't like to read. On that.
Or podcasts. Or
Podcasts, right? Absolutely. More people. I mean, podcasts are you see more and more famous people, leaders and stuff being on that. I'm glad you guys have done this, because I think it is important. And even when I watched your other videos with the other leaders you had, I picked up on stuff. I learned some stuff. And learning from others, I think, is really, really important in order for you to have that most gratifying position in work life, and that whole work life balance. I think is really important, because it does help you do a better job as a leader and interacting with others, and making sure that you're putting together the optimal team.
Yeah. I love going back to your time and kind of how that clock is, you're readjusting your focus and that end goal. And it sounds like you're more interested in enabling, encouraging, and empowering others' success along for the ride, right?
Absolutely.
Watching them succeed. And that's we see great leadership quotes, right? It's not about the title, it's about the impact that you're having on others.
Right.
But I've noticed a lot of CEOs, right? It's a tough position. Everybody's looking to you, right, for the future vision. Where are you taking us? How are you protecting us? And some CEOs really struggling asking internally for help because they feel like they need to have all the answers.
Right.
You seem very comfortable in the shoes and the soles that you're wearing today. How did you get there? Right? What would you tell a young emerging leader who's maybe stepping into their first CEO role, that you don't really truly have to know everything, but you do need to know how to tap into the collective intelligence of your people that you trust are in the right positions or the right seats? How did you get there, Mike? Because I think that is one of the biggest roadblocks to unlocking this a business's true potential.
Yep. So that's an awesome question, Kevin, because as a kid growing up, I'd see my boss and say, yeah, can I do that job? How would I know everything he does? And I thought my boss knew everything. How does he know that? How does he know that? And I'm thinking, wow, but as I learned more and as I got different positions, I'm thinking, hold it, I can do this, but you don't need to know it all.
Yeah.
And right now, I mean, you really get things done through the efforts of others and how you treat others and how you engage others, and making sure that you hire those right people and work with them and develop them. They're gonna do their specific task, their discipline. We don't need to know that. Do I need to know everything about engineering? No, not really, and you shouldn't, right? Does President Biden know everything about every aspect of government?
Correct.
No, he's been in a long time, but he doesn't, nor does he need to. So I think delegation is really important. And it's one of the hardest things for me to learn because I felt, nobody can do it better than I can because I've done it. I've been there, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't give people the opportunity and you're not delegating, they're not going to learn.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of delegation. I do a lot of coaching. I feel great about it.
Yeah.
Because then when I see the team doing what I did and what the results are, and they see the results, and I can go back to, okay, if you do this and this is the result. And they see that and they're like, wow, you're right.
Yeah.
And I love it. And with the team here, I've got a great team. I picked my own team, most other places too. Sometimes you don't get to pick your own team. Corporations, just it's a flow down. You're going to put this person in charge and okay, fine. But here it was great. Pick my own team and I delegate and they accept it and I tweak it. I delve in when I need to, but they know what needs to be done. And we've been very, very successful and we've been able to grow as a company because of that. And they work together really well. So I don't see any animosity, jealousies, or anything like that. The team's really working together, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to put together and how everyone works together. And they actually genuinely like each other too. So
yeah, but I mean, it sounds like you're willing to ask those questions and genuinely listen, right? To build that human connection first, to get them
absolutely
to be willing to be coached
Yeah.
or mentored, right? To
Yeah.
see it differently, to change that perspective with new information.
Yep.
And it's interesting to hear a CEO not so focused on the expected. Tyler brought it up, KPIs, right? We tend to look at
Yep.
KPIs that lead to these specific outputs. And I would say most organizations really fail to understand what key inputs actually are to drive those necessary outputs. But
Yep.
you're not making that the whole focus of their role and that the daily intention,
Yep.
which allows them to kind of come to that solution on their own. But we always hear delegation is the greatest form of empowerment, but it's relinquishing that control, which can be difficult for a lot of people.
Mike, do you remember the first time you ever delegated something to somebody and they actually just did it perfect? Was it the weirdest feeling?
Yeah, so that's a perfect because I tried to do that and I always felt back to me ending up doing it, and I could tell that people resented that, and so I said to myself, I have to stop doing that. And when they went in and they got it done, sometimes they did it better. I'm like, okay, this is great. I'm going to delegate more and a little bit more and more, and I'm able to do more. So my whole thing is I focus on the future, right? The strategy. It's more of the strategy. The day to day, there's other people that can do it better because they do it every day, just like I used to when I was coming up through the ranks. And when you see what people can do, then collectively, each of them helping each other on that, we utilize a goal deployment process here, which is KPIs, which are embedded in that. And once everybody comes in and works together, it's amazing. it's amazing what we can do.
Something to do with our era, Mike. I've been like a '90s guy. You know, my dad was a Texas high school football coach, and sometimes I don't feel it unless I'm like laying sod or something nasty, right? Just like getting after it. Do you have some of that in you? Like you feel like you need to have a little beat down in order to, but then when you're on the other side of it, like that delegation question I asked you, because I went through the same thing. I delegated a few things one time. Boom, knocked out the park. I was like, oh my goodness, what, you know, but I don't know. I think that era has something to say, not in a bad way.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how you come up through the ranks, and a lot of things have changed. You know, how people interact with each other. You know, there's been a lot of initiatives, you know, throughout the world, actually, and not a bad thing at all. But yeah, it was a different era. It definitely was a different era. You know, it's like, you know, I remember driving or taking my bike from Cobb's Hill all the way to Seabreeze with my friend. You can't do that today.
Wow.
Straight down Culver Road.
There's some physical fitness right there. And I love that you say do it every day, right? But it's really that trust component. You're building that relationship, you're establishing that trust, you're building that resilience of your workforce, but you're also trusting those closest to the problems to help you identify the solutions or future opportunities, which I think is where that's one of the greatest lessons I ever learned from Undercover Boss. And I love how you keep saying that I came up through the ranks, is that you are gaining that perspective of what it's like to work for somebody else. And as we traditionally heard from other leaders, is I learned what I didn't want to do, primarily from the other leaders that I chose to work for. And I think Tyler and I would agree with that sentiment. What was one of the great, go ahead, Mike.
So the other thing I just want to, you know, from leadership perspective, and this is really important, is people have to trust you, and you have to gain their trust. It's not like I can't go out and say, "Geez, guys, trust me." I'm gonna. You know, they're like, "Oh, I trust you for what are you gonna do?" It's like, you know, and it takes a while for people to trust you, but I'll tell you, once people trust you and you get on the same page, they will. You know, I always say, pick the people, your leadership team, people that'll go to war with you.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're there, they got your back, you have their back, they know you have their back. And I think that's really important from an overall leadership perspective. And hey, if you lead, they will follow, but they have to trust you.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And building that relationship with your team is really, really important.
Oh gosh. Yeah. And I always say the most empowering things as a leader is to I believe in you, I trust you, and I have your back. I mean, those are, I feel that I will be more willing to go to war for somebody, because you're striking that intrinsic motivation, not only the extrinsic motivation that we tend to rely on in business.
Right. And then prove it to me when race time comes.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, fair. I mean, it's followed by action. Words, and I love how you said you can't just ask for trust; you got to earn it and show it. So, splendid. Ty, you were going to add something.
Yeah, how does the front end of that conversation work for you, Mike? You know, when you have a new teammate or a new member, you know, if you can't really tell them about yourself, do you just kind of let your actions speak? Do you kind of what's your approach there? So I'm sure you've probably overpromised before, or you know, what's your strategy when you first meet someone on your new team to earn that?
Yeah, so it takes a little bit of time, and essentially you give them a task, and if they complete it, I like to praise people, maybe overpraise, tell me, hey, you did a great job, or if you didn't do a great job, just say, okay, well, you didn't, but you know, tweak it a little bit and say, do better next time. And I always offer help. How can I help? How can I help you? Do you need a tool? Do you need a new computer? Do you need a new piece of software? Do you need some more coaching or mentoring from me? And I think that helps. And you build that trust one step at a time. And then once you get there, it's like, okay, I mean, I think my team knows they can trust me. They know I have their back. They know I'll fight for them. And then what the company gets is those people, they'll go to battle for you. And that's, I think that's
go to war with you, right?
Yeah.
Right. But also, how can I help? I mean, I would say this is the output obsession becomes their daily intention, right? And it's, what have you done for me today, instead of what can I do for you to help you improve or become more successful. And I love that. It's two totally different things. And that's usually one of my litmus tests that I use with my clients is, are people so lucky to choose to work with you or for you, right? And I think that sentiment on itself is, oh, they're with us. It speaks to that collaboration, that teamwork, that I don't know everything and I'm going to rely on my team to create solutions together.
Right.
So what values would you say is growing up? I saw energy, high energy. Tyler I would consider one of the highest energy individuals. You could be having the shittiest day and all of a sudden you have a conversation with Tyler and magically your day turns better. How have you found positive intelligence to be almost one of your secret weapons as a leader?
Negative self-talk. I try to keep negative self-talk because that's, you can say, oh, I don't feel good. I could lose a few pounds, whatever. And that can bring you down. So I try to I try to think more about the positive things. What are all the different positive things? And I remember this one friend, one supervisor I had, he was this Jamaican fellow, and I guess an old saying, and he once told me, and this is pretty cool. He says, when things are going bad, Mike, and I was having a bad day or something, he goes, what's the absolute worst thing that can happen to you? And I'm like, I don't know. Get hit by a car or whatever. He says,
yeah.
He goes, you stop breathing.
Yeah.
He goes, if you think about what's the absolute thing, you stop, if you stop breathing. So if you back it off from there and you just had an argument with someone, that's not that bad.
Correct.
So you kind of get rid of the negative self-talk and say, okay, that's not that bad. So life is not that bad. This incident was not that bad. This interaction was not that bad. So given that, say, life is actually pretty good. I'm just going to move on from that. I think once you get beyond that, then I think that'll help you. I mean, that helps me. I don't, you said, don't sweat the small stuff. I read the book. Great book.
Yeah.
Because I did sweat the small stuff. I used to sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
I don't sweat the small stuff. Sometimes I don't sweat the big stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of it takes care of itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to see people doing that. I admire that.
I think calm with the storm. I mean, you see a leader not getting flustered by something big. It's that's entertaining for people, right? Oh, they're not flustered. It's not. But it's almost like using a sales tactic to that Jamaican peer's point is reduce it to the ridiculous. Like how much bigger are you making that event than what it actually is? And reducing it to the ridiculous allows them to gain perspective of, oh yeah, maybe I am making a bigger thing of something that I shouldn't be. But I love to keep the negative self-talk. I think we hear about imposter syndrome and people feeling like imposters. And I think just as society, we're way better at striking our weaknesses and identifying our weaknesses than our own strengths. And that's just societal, right? I know me coming from the trophy generation, I struggle with being that center point, right? I always have to do things as a team because that's kind of, I was always either putting yourself down to be equal with or raising others up to be equal with your strengths. And in doing so, it can be really hard at identifying your own without peers or mentors like Tyler White, who helped me with that.
I think I was in the Caribbean one time in a bad day, whatever, in business, right? And the guy said something to me along the lines of, do you realize that you're floating on a blue ball? I was like, huh. Yeah, that's kind of funny. Yeah, we're all floating up this dang thing together.
True. Right.
And then, or even like when I'm in an airplane and I see all the little cars that they look like ants. Yeah, I think about like the conversations going in. You can't hear them because you're in a dang airplane 30,000 feet up. I don't know. That's just I like those perspectives, Mike.
And I like the cosmos one, and we're any leader that thinks that they're the end all be all, that there's more galaxies than pieces of sand on their planet. So like you think you're big, well, just realize how small you actually are.
Yeah, I got a friend down in Naples, he's a former executive, retired, and I said, hey, how's it going? And he goes, good. He goes, as you get older, he goes, you find out, he goes, that people have a lot more than you thought you had, especially down there. It's like, yeah, it is true. You're not, there's always somebody more, and every day based on the stock market, it changes. Sometimes it's Elon, sometimes it's the others. So, yeah.
That's hilarious. Here's another. Bob Marley said, if you're always chasing money, money's a number and numbers are infinite. So you'll always be chasing money. So another wise parable there from another Jamaican, but really putting that into perspective, chasing that, what are you chasing ultimately at the end of the day? And maybe it was money for you at first. And like it is for a lot of people starting in their career because they believe money allows them the opportunity to afford happiness, but then they start to realize, what am I exchanging my time for? And is it really ultimately bringing me happiness or more misery? So that's powerful stuff, Mike.
Man, I've had a good time this afternoon, fella.
Both you guys are just, you interact with each other, and I loved watching your shows. And yeah, Tyler, you're full of energy. You always, you said, okay, he's going to be a character. In a good way.
I met that guy at like 7 a.m. and I had a first sip of my coffee, and I was like, who the hell is this guy? And why does he have so much energy at 7:30 in the morning?
Yeah, right. I love it. I love it.
Back to your energy piece. Positive energy, I've noticed, is obviously negativity loves company, or misery loves company, as that saying goes. But positivity, I've noticed in today's environment, in today's day and age, it's a lot easier to be negative than it is positive. And
it is.
Hearing you kind of focus on positive energy, right, and creating that right feeling, that sense of belonging, makes all the difference in the world. And I think ultimately we all want to be listened to, valued, and heard, and know specifically how we're adding value and what we can be doing better. But what are we already good at? Mike, I just want to say thank you so much for your leadership, your principles as a leader, your involvement within the community to continue to provide new opportunities to people that maybe have never thought about photonics before in this emerging space here. But it's great leaders like you that don't see it only for your customer's lens, but your customer is also your employee, as well as the community in which we all live and work. So just thank you so much for taking the time with us and being a special guest.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the time, and I'm glad we virtually kind of met.